Today's daf yomi is Nedarim daf Pei Hey, Nedarim 85. We're going to start on the bottom of Pei Daled Amabeis, around 8 lines from the bottom, where the Gemara had said, the Gemara is quoting a line from our Mishnah, and our Mishnah says, if a person says that Kohanim and Leviim are not allowed to benefit from me, and they can take, the Kohanim Levim can still come regardless and take their Truma and Meiser. Whereas if he says these Kohanim and these Levim cannot benefit from me, then those Kohanim Levim can't benefit, but others can come along and take the Truma and Meiser. So from the first clause, it seems to be saying, says the Gemara, from the fact that Kohanim Levim can still come and take it, we're seeing that something that's called Tovas Hana is not considered a benefit. Tovas Hana is the value that Israel gets by being able to give the Truma and Meiser to whichever Kohen he wants. The value of being able to give a gift, like the value of being on the board of a foundation, so to speak, that gives away money. So we see from the fact that they can come along and take it, it means that there's no monetary value to Tovas Hana, according to the Reisha of the Mishnah. But the Sefer of the Mishnah, which says that these Kohanim and these Levim can't take it, that proves that there is a thing, that there is a value for Tovas Hana. So our Mishnah seems to be contradicting each other. We'll read the lines of the Gemara. Alma Tovas Hana ain't a mamon. From the Reisha, from the first clause, it proves that this Tovas Hana is not money, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to take it. But Ema Sefer, but the next clause says, Kohanim Elu, Levim Elu Neningly. These Kohanim and these Levim cannot benefit from me. Yitlu Acherim, then other people should take it. Avohani lo, but these ones who are prohibited can't. Alma Tovas Hana mamon. So from the latter clause of the Mishnah, it proves that Tovas Hana is actually money. So I'm Rav Hoshaya, Kasha. Rav Hoshaya says it's not difficult. Ha-Rebbe Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. That this is Rebbe, and one is the position of Rebbe, and one is the position of Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda. How do we see this? We see this in a brayso, the Tanya. Brayso Torah, Gonev Tivol Shel Chavero. So someone who steals tevel from his friend. What's tevel? Tevel is the produce that after it grows on the ground, and before the Yisrael tithes it, before he separates the tithe, the Truma and Meiser, then it's called tevel, and you know how to eat it. And if you eat it, you're chayav misa from heaven. You're liable for death from heaven. So somebody comes along and steals a bushel of wheat before the Israel took the tevel. So Reuven comes along and steals Shimon's bushel of wheat before Shimon took the tevel. And then Reuven eats it. Mishalim lo d'mei tivol. Rebbe says you pay him the whole value of the tevel. You don't deduct anything. Whereas Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda says Eino mishalim el d'mei chulin shebo. Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda says you only pay him the value of the chulin. We assume that he's going to have to deduct Truma and Meiser from it. So you don't pay him that value. So the Gemara is going to say, from the fact that Rebbe says you pay the whole value, even though there is included in that value Truma and Meiser, which he was going to have to give it away. We see from here that the Truma and Meiser that he was going to have to give away still has a value to the Yisrael. That value is the Tovas Hana. And that's why Rebbe says you pay for all of the tevel, not just the tevel minus the Truma and Meiser. So that's what the Gemara's assumption is going to be. And so therefore, if he says you pay for the Rebbe is saying you include the Tovas Hana, that Tovas Hana is a monetary benefit. And that is Rebbe is like the Sefer word of our Mishnah. Whereas Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda says you don't pay the full tevel, means you don't pay the Tovas Hana is not something that's monetized. Therefore, Yossi Bar Yehuda is like the Reisha. So that's what the Gemara says. My love, what's their argument about? On the top of Pei Hey Amid Aleph, the Rebbe suffer Tovas Hana. When Rebbe says you pay the full value, he says this concept of Tovas Hana is a monetary concept. It's a concept of being able to give a gift is a monetary concept. That's called the concept of Tovas Hana. Tovas Hana. Whereas Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda said, so therefore, in the case of the person who takes a vow against Kohanim and Levim, then we're going to say that they can't take it because it's Tovas Hana. That's like the Sefer. Whereas Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda, Savar Tovas Hana Einamam, and he says Tovas Hana is not monetary. And so therefore, in the Reisha of the Mishnah, the Kohanim and Levium can come along and take it. Gemara says, no, that's not the dispute. Gemara is going to say that everybody says that the Tova Sana, the benefit of giving a gift, cannot be monetized. And so therefore, really, it's not money. And so therefore, it makes sense why in the Reisha, we're going to say that why in the Reisha we say that they can come along and take it because it's not money. Well, if that's the case, why in the Seifa do we say that they can't take it? So the Gemara says, no, the dispute in our mission is about something else. We're talking about tithes that have not yet been separated, whether or not we're going to consider them to be tithes. That's really the whole dispute. That's the machokas. If a tithe that has not been separated, do we view it as though it's already separated? And so therefore, that's what Rebbe and Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda are arguing about. How do we view this tithe that has not yet been separated? Now, Rebbe, who says that you pay the full value, says we view it as though it's not yet been separated, so therefore you have to pay him the full amount. Whereas Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda says that since we view it as though it's been separated, and therefore you only have to pay him back for the full amount minus the truma and the meiser that are in it. But everybody says that Tova Sana is not money, and so therefore everybody would agree with the first cause of the Mishnah. So the Gemara says, well, if you're going to really say that this Tova Sana is not monetary thing, well, if that's the case, Mali Lo Hermu. What do we care if it was separated or not? It doesn't matter. That there's no value to it because Tova Sana is not a value. So therefore, even according to Rebbe, you shouldn't pay the full amount. It shouldn't matter. You should only pay the full amount minus the Truma and the Meiser. So we still don't understand Rebbe's position. So therefore, the Gemara says, "Oh, Hainu time of the Rebbe." So what's the reason why Rebbe says you pay the full amount? So he says, "Kansur Rabbanu Laganov Kihechidu Olignov." The rabbis penalize the ganaf, the robber. We don't want the robber to steal the bushel and says, "Okay, now I only have to pay," and then eat the full bushel, and now say, "I only have to pay you 85% back because of the fact that I don't have to pay you back for the Truma Meiser, which you should have had to take." But meanwhile, he himself, the robber, doesn't have to pay any Kohen, the Truma Meiser, because it's consumed, and the Kohen is not. No, there's no specific Kohen that can make a claim against him. So therefore, the robber ends up benefiting slightly. I mean, he's going to be punished from heaven, but he ends up making a little bit of cash on the side. Whereas Rabbi Yossi Bar Rabbi Yehuda Savar Kansur Rabbanu Abalbai. So Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda says, no, the rabbis say that you have to pay the full amount minus the Truma Meiser, so you're not paying the full amount because they're penalizing the Baal Bayis. Why? We don't want you to leave the teva lying around that the low issue because this person had the produce in his house. He should have taken his grain and separated it. And the fact that he didn't do it when the robber came along and stole it, that was a terrible thing the robber did. But we don't want to encourage people not tithing right away. We don't want people to wait to do the mitzvah. You have to rush to do the mitzvah. So therefore, we're penalizing him and saying, we're not paying you back for the Truma Meiser in it. So this person is not going to get the full amount back because we want you to rush to tithe your produce. It's a tremendous inyan here that when you have an opportunity to do a mitzvah, you shouldn't wait. We don't want you to wait to do the mitzvah. Rava gives a different answer. Rava is going to say, how do we explain the contradiction between the Reisha and the Seif of our Mishnah? Why in the Reisha does it say that the Kohanim will be taken in the Seif? It says they can't. Rava says, Shani Truma, Taima, he says, no, there's a fundamental reason why in the Reisha we say that the Kohanim can come. Even though in general we're going to say that Tova Sana is considered to be money. In this case, we're not going to say that Tova Sana is money. Why? Because Rava says case of Truma is fundamentally different. What's the reasoning that they could take it against the owner's will? Mishum de Truma Chazi El Kohanim. The whole concept of Truma is only something that's capable for Kohanim to eat. And so since this person has come and said all Kohanim can't take it, so therefore this is worthless. Shavya afra ba'alma. So he said this whole thing is worthless. The truma, since nobody could eat it, he said it's worthless. Well, since he said it's worthless, then he no longer has tovas anah. Since he no longer has tovas anah, those Kohanim are not benefiting from him, and so therefore they could come along and take it. That's the way Rava explains it. Okay, now we come to a Mishnah, which is basically a restatement of a sugya which we had in Gemara and Ksubos on Daf Nun Tes. So really, we should be doing this Gemara hand in hand, marching with the Gemara and Ksubos. But since this is Daf Yomi, we'll just be looking at this Gemara in Nedarim. Of course, we remember the Gemara and Ksubos probably around a year ago. So this is what our Mishnah states. If a woman says, Konim Sheni Osa Al Pi Abba, she says, I take a vow that my father can't have benefit from me. Al Pi Avicha, or your father can't benefit from me. Al Pi Achi, Al Pi Achicha, my brother or your brother, Elu Yachlo Hafer. Then the husband cannot annul this vow. Why? It's not a vow of Inoy Nefesh, because she's saying, my father can't benefit, or your father. That's not a vow of affliction of the soul, so the husband can't annul it. It's also not a vow of what's called Beinola Beina, which we had earlier, that the husband can only annul the vows that are between him and her. Since it's not in that rubric of a vow, therefore, the husband can't annul the vow. But let's say he says, She'ini Ose Al Picha, but let's say she says, all the vows, all the work that I make, you can't benefit. That all of my work you can't benefit. So the Tanna Kamma Mishnah says the husband doesn't even need to annul that vow. Why does he not even need to annul that vow? Because that vow is her hand, the work she makes is her husband has a lien on it. Meaning to say, when they get married, she made an agreement that she was going to provide certain things to the marriage, and one of that is her salary. So she can't now annul her husband from getting that vow because they already have something. She's already promised to from the Torah. She's already promised that she has to do this work for him. But let's say she says, Rabbi Akiva says, Yafer. Rabbi Akiva says under that case where she takes a vow that the husband can't benefit from her, Rabbi Akiva says he should still annul the vow. Why? Because there's hadafa, there's the extra. So let's say she works beyond what she's required to, and we know that there's a specific amount that in Mesachas Kesuvos that what she's supposed to do, either 5 Salaim of Shasi and Yehuda, which is 10 in the Galilee, and the extra stuff belongs to her. And so this hadafa, since it's hers, Rabbi Akiva says she's allowed to prohibit it upon him, and since she's allowed to prohibit it upon him, he should reject the vow so that he has the right to reject the vow so that he is able to use this material. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri gives a third approach. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says, Yafer, he should reject the vow for a different reason. Shema Yigrashena, maybe he'll divorce her. And if he'll divorce her, Tehi Asuralav, now this work, which was prohibited to him, which was permitted to him while he was married, once he divorces her, now this vow is going to no longer be permitted to him, and so he should have annulled the vow. But otherwise, it's going to be prohibited. He won't be able to remarry her. So again, what's the case? The woman makes a vow that her husband can't benefit from her. The Tanna Kamma says he doesn't even need to annul the vow. The vow is automatically not binding because she's mishubedes. Her work there's a lien on it to her husband from when the day they got married. Whereas Rabbi Akiva says, no, he should still annul the vow because what about the money she does beyond what she's required to? So that's what he should annul. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says he should annul the vow in case they get divorced, because then if they get divorced, how's he going to be able to remarry her if there's a vow that he can't benefit from her? So he should annul the vow now. So Amar Shmuel says, Halachak Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Shmuel says the law is like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, that he should annul the vow now in case they get divorced. So Meimra must be that Shmuel is saying, because that Shmuel is saying he should annul the vow now, because otherwise, after they get divorced, then the work she makes at that point will become prohibited to him. So which proves that it will be like she was makdish something now for the future. But so it must be that Shmuel says you could consecrate something that's not yet in existence. She's not yet divorced, and her work after she's divorced is not yet in existence. And yet, if she doesn't, she's prohibiting it upon her husband now, something that's not yet in existence. And therefore, Shmuel says you have to annul that vow. So the Gemara challenges: is this really Shmuel's position? Veraminu, but we have a contradictory source because it states in Ksubos, that if somebody consecrates his wife's salary, he takes what his wife is going to make. He says, I'm consecrating my wife's salary. So then we say that the woman could still continue to do her work, and the consecration doesn't take effect because the husband is not permitted to consecrate it. And the reason is, the Gemara Ksuba says that we're talking about where the husband is not providing her with food, and so therefore she's doing her own work, and he's not providing her with food. That's an agreement that they are allowed to do, and so we say that since he's not giving her work, for sure it's her food, and so he's not able to consecrate it. V'amosar, but let's say the husband consecrates the extra work that she makes, meaning to say the hadafa, the extra work. Rabbi Meir says hektish, or Meir says it's going to be consecrated, even though it's something that's not yet come into the world. And Rabbi Yochanan Sandler says it's not consecrated because you can't consecrate something, according to Rabbi Yochanan Sandler, that has not yet come into the world. Amar Shmuel, lachak Rabbi Yochanan Sandler. So Shmuel says the laws like Rabbi Yochanan Sandler, ein adam makdish davar shelo ba la'olam. You cannot consecrate something that's not yet in existence. So we see from here, Alma, we see from here, ein adam makdish davar shelo ba la'olam. We see from here that according to Shmuel, a person cannot consecrate something that's not yet in existence. Doesn't this contradict what we just said, that Shmuel says the laws like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, that the husband should annul the vow lest after she gets divorced, the vow take effect? So the Gemara, and if you want to say, says the Gemara, says maybe we have to limit when Shmuel said that laws like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, maybe we misunderstood. Maybe we're reading it too expansively. Maybe he wasn't talking about that when he said the laws like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Maybe he wasn't opining at all with respect to. Maybe he wasn't opining at all with respect to this concept of maybe what he was talking about is with respect to al hadafa hudakamer. Maybe he was saying that I agree with Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri as it relates to the hadafa, that Rabbi Kiva says the husband should annul the vow, or else the hadafa will become prohibited to him. And maybe Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says no, the hadafa will also not become prohibited to him, meaning to say that under this position Shmuel holds like him, meaning to say al hadafa. We'll see what the Ran says here. So v'chitim kamar alacha Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri al hadafa kamar. This is what the Ran says. But my depalgolay the Rabbi Akiva. That's where he's arguing with Rabbi Akiva. That Rabbi Akiva says yafer mishama hadafa. Rabbi Akiva says the husband should reject the vow because otherwise the extra money that the woman makes will become prohibited to him. This really Rabbi Akiva hadafa didahavya, because Rabbi Akiva's other position that the extra money belongs to her. And Rabbi Yochanan Nuri argues with Rabbi Akiva, and he says, that because of this extra money, ain't hafer, that dafa nami debali. That Rabbi Yochanan Nuri says that dafa is also the husband's, and so there, so maybe that's when Shmuel says the laws like Rabbi Yochanan Nuri. Maybe he's only saying with respect to the hadafa that the husband doesn't need to annul the vow of the hadafa because that's also his. But when he says yafer, when he says he should reject it because of what would happen after they get divorced, maybe Shmuel does not hold like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, because he would say it's something in the future, and so the vow doesn't take effect. Because maybe Shmuel says ein adam makdish davar shelo ba la'olam. So the Gemara is saying maybe when Shmuel says laws like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, it's only with respect to this discrete area where he argues with Rabbi Akiva, i.e., with respect to the hadafa. The Rabbi Akiva says the hadafa belongs to the woman, and so therefore the husband should annul. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says that no, it belongs to the husband, And so therefore he doesn't need to annul it. So the Gemara says, well, if that would be the case, then the Mishnah could have said, let's say that the law is like Rabbi Yochanan Nuri only with respect to Adafa. That's what Shmuel could have said. Or else Shmuel could have said, the law is like the Tanakama in this case that you don't need to annul it because Rabbi Akiva says you need to annul it because of the Adafa. Shmuel could have just said the law is like the Tanakama because they're clearly arguing about Adafa. So, or else, Inami, you could have just said, the law is not like Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says you have to be concerned about Adafa. He could have just said the law is not like him. From the fact that he said that the law is like Rabbi Yochanan Nuri, it seems to imply that the law is like Rabbi Yochanan Nuri, that a person can consecrate something even that's not yet in existence. So therefore, Rabbi Yosef says that we're talking about two totally different areas. When do we say Shmuel says that in Adam Maktish Davar Shelo Bo Olam, and versus here where he says it can't be Maktish? Why? So that's why Rabbi Yosef says Shani Konamos. Here we're talking about vows. By vows, a person can be consecrating something that's not yet in existence. Because what's the law with respect to vows? Since a person by vows has the ability to say, your fruits are prohibited upon me, he's also therefore able, because the fruits of his friends are not in his possession, and he's still able to prohibit it upon himself. So too, you're also able to prohibit upon yourself something that's not yet in existence. So that's what way Rav Yosef says. It's just, even though by hektish we say you can't be consecrating something that's not yet in existence, as it relates to vows, Shmuel wouldn't say that. So Amar Abaye says, wait, Bishlam Adam Oser Peros Chavero Alav Shari Adam Oser Peros of Al Chavero. Abaye says, well, it makes sense to say, Abaye says, I have a difficulty with your answer, Rav Yossi. I said, it makes sense to say why a person prohibits the fruits of his friend upon him, because Sharei Adam Oser Peros of Al Chavero, because a person can also prohibit his own fruits on his friend. Meaning to say, so therefore, this law was only said with respect to the fact that he's able to prohibit his friend's fruits upon him, but because he has control of his own possession, of his own body. So he says, your fruits are prohibited upon me. But so that makes sense. And he can also prohibit his own fruits on his friends because his fruits are also in his possession. But how can he prohibit something that's not yet in existence upon his friend? That's something that you can't prohibit your friend's fruits, a friend's fruits upon a different friend's fruits, or Reuven's fruits upon Reuven. Though neither one of those things are in your possession. And so therefore it's not a good argument to say that by vows, since you could prohibit your friend's fruits upon yourself, you could prohibit something that's not yet in existence. Because we see that it's the limitation by vows that you can only do something that's in your possession at that point. And something that's not yet in existence is not yet in your possession. So therefore, says Rav Huna Berei de Rav Yoshua, Rav Huna Berei de Rav Yoshua, but Omeres, that what are we talking about? Why in this case is Shmuel saying the laws are like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, that he can that she could consecrate something that's not yet in existence. But Omeres, that what is she saying? She's saying Yikadshu Yadai what was saying. She said, let my hands be consecrated to God. Meaning to say she's not consecrating her future work, she's consecrating her hands at this point. So those are in existence. The Yadayim ha'isnu ba'olam. And because her hands are indeed in existence. And so therefore she's able to consecrate it now, even though the work is not yet in existence, her hands are in existence. So the Gemara says, do you really say, if she says this, that she's able to consecrate something? If she says, my hands will be consecrated? But aren't her hands already Meshubah, her husband has a lien on her hands, and so therefore, how could she consecrate her hands to the temple? So the Gemara says, the Gemara's answer is l'chim megarishta. So yeah, she's saying when I'm divorced, it will take effect. Meaning to say, it doesn't mean she consecrates her hands now. She says when my hands will be divorced from my husband, then they'll take effect. So the Gemara says, yeah, but hashta miyas lo megarisha. Well, right now she's not divorced. So why do we think? And when she will end up being divorced, it will be effective. So that's today's daf. We'll stop the recording here. We go on a little bit. We'll go on a little bit, but on top of now